10 years ago, on July 20th, 2012, 12 people lost their lives and dozens more were injured at a midnight showing of Batman: The Dark Knight Rises when James Holmes opened fire in an Aurora, Colorado movie theater. Holmes was ultimately sentenced to 12 life sentences plus an extra 3,000 years in prison for the mass murder. Before the massacre, psychiatrist Dr. Lynne Fenton spent months providing mental health care to Holmes, and after she spent years questioning whether she could have done something to stop the Aurora theater shooting from happening at all. Joining us now is Dr. Lynne Fenton, who co-wrote the new book, Aurora, the psychiatrist who treated the movie theater killer, tells her story about why she felt it was so important to share her story for the first time. Dr. Fenton, we thank you so much for joining us tonight. Holmes was a graduate student at the University of Colorado when he contacted the campus mental health center for help with his obsessive thoughts of killing people and his anxiety in social situations. You took his case and were the last mental health professional to see him before his rampage. Describe what he was like in those meetings that you had with him leading up to the shooting.
Well, he was extremely anxious. And very awkward, sort of beyond just a smart and nerdy guy, but moved kind of awkwardly, almost robotically sometimes. And in talking to him, it was very hard to get him to say anything more than just a couple words or a brief sentence.
And what might he say when he did say a couple of words?
Well, he came in of his own accord, but it was actually at the behest of some of his supervisors in the neuroscience PhD program, because he was so nervous and awkward in his lab presentations. But the thoughts of killing people, he just sort of added in almost incidentally, oh, I have thoughts of killing people, which is such a vague statement. And so I spent a lot of the 6 visits over several months trying to understand what was behind that. Was he going to do something? Or were they just unbidden thoughts that he didn't like?
But once somebody does tell a psychiatrist, I have thoughts of killing people, and obviously you have the confidentiality. So at what point are you able to kind of raise this red flag that you have this client who desires to kill?
Holmes never did this, but if a person said, I have this target, there's a person I want to kill, or maybe a group of people, or I'd like to shoot up a theater, anything along those lines that's more specific than the vague statements that he had, then you can inform the police and have them look into that. And you can even put them on something called a mental health hold, which is where you can detain someone for up to 3 days to gather more information of what's going on.
So shortly before the shooting, Holmes mailed you a notebook. Inside the notebook, which was titled Of Life, were Holmes' insights into my mind of madness, as he described it, that contained detailed plans of his desire to kill. The notebook arrived in your mailbox days after the shooting. What would you have done had you received the notebook earlier?
Oh my gosh, if I had seen that, of course, I would have instantly called law enforcement. But I think he did it on purpose. Like a lot of folks who do events like this will have a manifesto of types that they send off just a little before the shooting. And essentially that's what this was. And it was an attempt to explain, why he did this, but it makes no sense to a sane person, but it really goes through the details of why he picked the theaters and how he cased the joint and, when he was going to arrive. And it's very chilling.
And especially we see there all those pages of why. What are your thoughts about why we're seeing this rise in mass shootings 10 years still after that theater massacre?
Why? It's really hard to say. I think some of that is perhaps some really twisted online culture. We know that young folks are struggling more than ever with mental health, so that may be a factor. And, no doubt the easy access to lethal means.
Right, and you are right, because it does seem like we're seeing a lot of 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds pulling the trigger in these mass shootings. You write about being vilified by the press and media, having your life threatened and being subjected to an internal review by your university. I want to just quote something that you wrote here. You said, "I felt shattered, angry, betrayed. My life had become unrecognizable." With that, I'm curious to know how cathartic then it was for you to write about your experiences.
Well, one of the things that made it really tough, especially during the period between the shooting and Holmes' trial, was that we had a gag order, which affected not only me, but any person that had anything to do with the trial. So I could not defend myself. So one part that, for me anyway, is great and hopefully helpful for the public to learn about the details is to finally be able to say, you know, the lengths that I went to try to prevent anything like this.
Dr. Lynne Fenton, we thank you so much for joining us and sharing your story. Aurora, the psychiatrist who treated the movie theater killer, tells her story. Is available now wherever books are sold.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.